Hi, Mary. I think that your mic is off, but I'm saying hello. Oh wow, people are actually showing up. This is so exciting. All right. I have to admit people in apparently, so I'm gonna do this for a few more minutes and let some people get situated. I am so excited about this, nervous, but excited. So happy that you guys are here. So just give it a few more minutes. This is my first time ever doing, let's see. This is my first time ever doing something like this. So, admit. This is so exciting. So, it's the first time for me too. And when I started this, I put everyone's mics on mute and um, videos off too. So this way, I wanted everyone to be able to join and not feel like the pressure of having to look a certain way or anything, because that's the way I am. All right, I'm going to give it a few more minutes, but hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you guys here. There's 6 people on here right now. This is so exciting. So in about a minute, I'm going to get started. I'm going to share my screen with you. I have a little PowerPoint thing. So if you want to take notes, feel free. It's not necessary, obviously, but it's definitely some pretty powerful and exciting stuff. Admit. See. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so there's some pretty powerful and exciting stuff. I wanted to make this a little bit more factual because I'm always talking about this 5-second method, which is honestly, it's such a simple tool to change the way you make decisions. But I really want to talk about the how and why it works and why it's so powerful, because there's a lot of actual science behind it. I'm not going to get like too crazy, but I feel like when our minds actually understand how something works, we're more likely to use it. At least that's what's worked for me. Let me make sure my phone is off and everything. All right, so this is recording too so that I can share it with anyone who wasn't able to make it. But I'm gonna share my screen with you guys. See if I can do this. All right, cool. Let's see if I can make this bigger. All right. So right on the front there is, and also the chat box is open, just so you guys know. So if you want to type any questions or you have any questions while I'm going through anything, feel free to type it in the chat down below, and then I'll look at it towards the end. Right here on the front is one of my favorite quotes, which is "Old ways won't open new doors," which is so true in the case of personal development and when it comes to habits that we're trying to change as human beings. Me personally, I've always, for so long, was trying to do the same thing over and over again, and I'm wondering why I'm not getting a result. And typically, that's why I would just kind of throw in the towel, and I would stop trying, which is a shame, but that's generally what happens to a lot of us. So I'm just going to give a quick rundown here, and let me see if I can move. Move that down there. So my name is Brittany, and for some of you that don't know me, I know some of us have not talked personally, but I'm thrilled to have you here. So my name is Brittany, and my middle name is Joy, actually. I was born 5 days after Christmas, so I'm not sure if that's why my parents named me that, or they really thought I was going to bring some joy to people, but regardless, I'm 30. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania in a suburb right outside of Philadelphia. And the first live video that some of you I know found me, the first video I made on Instagram, amazingly, has been viewed now 150,000 times on Facebook. And in that video, if you haven't seen it, that's where I shared a lot of my own personal story and my struggles with bullying that I experienced when I was younger. I had experienced pretty intense bullying for my teeth. Oh, I have some people trying to come in, admit. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. So I had experienced some pretty intense bullying for my teeth when I was younger. And what I did not realize was a lot of that kind of stuck with me later on in life when I was trying to like figure out what I was going to do with my life, what I felt called to do. And I was kind of just stuck, as many of us get there. So that live video was a pretty huge catalyst in all of this. Obviously I'm a little nervous right now, but I was extremely nervous to do that live, and I did not expect it to get the kind of traction that it did. And then I spent close to 9 years in the restaurant industry before finally calling it quits. And it looks like something, let me see here. Oh, people are talking in the chat. Oh, thanks. um, Sorry guys, I don't really know what I'm doing. Just bear with me. This is like my first time doing one of these, so I'm super excited and I'll get better as I go. But I spent close to 9 years in the restaurant industry before I finally called it quits. I was kind of at the point where I was doing what we all do and I was staying comfortable. I knew that I wasn't happy in the restaurant industry. I knew I didn't want to be there anymore, but I didn't know what else I could do at that point. Like I was 30, I was scared to like do something different, so I stayed. And then finally, it was actually before the pandemic happened, which a lot of people actually don't know this about me, but it was 3 weeks prior to this pandemic putting anyone out of work. And I actually walked in on a Tuesday afternoon and I just quit my job. I just walked in, I was like, I'm done. This isn't going to be my last day today. And I worked my shift, but I knew what I was doing when I went in there. And the entire shift, my mind was trying to talk me out of it. It was like, no, you should stay. What are you going to do for money? Is this a bad idea? Like, how are you going to pay your bills? And I just was like, nope, I'm going to. And I actually was using this rule I'm going to talk about in this workshop. I was using it then and I didn't even realize it. So I walked in and I just quit. And it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And right now I'm currently finalizing my certification from the International Coaching Foundation to be a certified life coach. So certifications actually are not required to be a certified life coach in the online space, which scares me a little bit, to be honest. It felt aligned for me just to kind of have that, know that I'm going through the right steps when I'm coaching somebody, when I'm talking to somebody, that I'm following a correct protocol. I've always felt pretty aligned and pretty intuitive when I talk to people. I feel like I'm pretty good at reading into what someone's saying and the whys behind it. But it is a little scary to me in this online space that you don't have to have any certification. You can just like kind of say, I'm this kind of coach, and just like go out there and do it. So I will be finalizing my certification soon. And then my focus right now of coaching is in clarity and goal setting right now. And I'm also in the process, after that video went out that got 150,000 views on Facebook, I got a lot of traction of other females and young girls who have had similar instances of bullying. So I am actually going to be going back to my hometown shortly here. I'm currently in Florida. I'm going to have to quarantine for 14 days, but I am going to be working on a mentoring program for teenage girls who have gone through bullying, and either working just with them or also with their parents, obviously virtually, but that's something else that I'm really excited that I'm working on right now. So now I'm going to get right into the kind of whole thing here. So at the top, obviously it says 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get into it. So don't mind my corniness, but the whole idea behind this pretty simple method, it's known as the 5-second method. And actually it was Mel Robbins, who is I love her. She's a huge pivotal part of like my life in this kind of like coaching atmosphere. She's fantastic. So I implore you to look her up on Instagram if you have never heard of her. But she kind of came up with this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, gave a name to it as the 5-second method. Although it's a metacognition technique that's been around forever. I mean, it's just one of those things that no one really gave a name to and gave notice to. So I just kind of have a few things written on these slides and some talking points. But our problems always seem huge while the solutions are actually very simple and small. And it's one of those things where I'm sure some of you can relate, and tell me in the chat box if you can. But can anyone here relate to knowing, like, you know what you need to do, but you cannot seem to make yourself do it? And for a long time, me personally, and I still struggle with this. My boyfriend will be able to tell you that. But, oh, I have someone else trying to come in. Hold on. This is so exciting, guys. All right. Let's see if this works. Let her in. Da-na-na-na. So I was just going to say that was a huge struggle for me when it came to getting up earlier in the morning. I am not a morning person at all. So I didn't even realize what I was doing when I was hitting the snooze button all the time. That's typically, and I'm sure some of you in this chat, in this group might do it. Oh my gosh, this is exciting, guys. So what actually happens when we hit the snooze button in the morning is you're actually putting yourself into what's called sleep inertia. And this is something, because Mel Robbins' technique, when she came up with this, she was actually, her whole life was kind of falling apart. She talks about it in a TED Talk, actually, which I send to my girls in my group. I give them the link to look at it and watch it because it is a magical talk. But she essentially talks about how her life was falling apart. She was 40. Her marriage with her husband was in the gutter. It was not going well at all. She was drinking all the time. She was totally unhappy, and she didn't know how to change her life. She was just like, she knew that to get up early, go look for another job. Her husband's job, actually in the restaurant industry that they had invested in, they expanded way too quickly. They used pretty much all of their savings that they were going to use for their kids' college. Like, she didn't know what to do. So she knew the solution was getting up, getting a job, and doing something, with her life to stop it. But she couldn't pull herself out of bed. She would think about it the night before, and I so relate to this. Think about it the night before, like, tomorrow's going to be the day. I'm going to get up 30 minutes earlier. I'm going to get up an hour earlier, and I'm going to start my day. I'm going to do that workout. I'm going to read that book. I'm going to finish that lesson. And then the morning comes and we hit snooze. Oh, I've been there too many times than I'd like to admit. But so what happens when you're doing that is you're actually putting your body into sleep inertia. So you're hitting snooze, and your body's going back in, and wants to go back into a sleep cycle. So even if your alarm then goes off again 30 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour later, and you do get up, your mind isn't actually fully awake for another 4 hours. So that during that 4 hour period of time where you're, walking around, that's your whole decision making, your whole productivity is actually thrown off for the entire day until that 4 hour period is over and your mind kind of like gets, back to where it needs to be. And that's why sometimes we find ourselves, in the morning, we had all these intentions to get up and work out and make egg whites and avocado for breakfast. And we find ourselves opening the refrigerator door and, going for something that we absolutely shouldn't be eating, or like the glazed donut or something. And it's because your decision making is totally thrown off from where it needs to be. Your mind is trying to cycle back into a sleep cycle mode. And that is kind of how Mel Robbins started using this 5-4-3-2-1 method to essentially launch herself out of bed in the mornings. And I have written here, there's a moment when you start thinking about what you need to do instead of actually doing it. And if this goes on for more than 5 seconds, you're never going to actually do it. So this is why this method is so important. There is a 5-second window in our brains when you think, I should go to the gym. Within 5 seconds, your mind is going to start giving you all the reasons why you can go later, you can go around 5, you could go after dinner, you could go late, you could go, wouldn't it be so much nicer to go sit on the couch and watch this show? Our mind comes up with all sorts of reasons. We start overthinking and we don't end up going to the gym. And that's just what happens. And it happens again later that day. And then you're like, I'll just go tomorrow. And it's like the cycle that our mind is constantly putting us through. So like I said earlier, the solutions are so small and simple, but it's like we cannot bring ourselves to do it. And that's why 5-4-3-2-1 it's technically a metacognition technique, which I have written on the right hand side here, but simply put, that refers to the processes used to plan, monitor, and assess one's understanding in the brain. So it's like a critical awareness technique, but you're becoming aware of, when you're using the 5-second method, you're becoming aware of this action that you want to take place. And when you start counting down backwards, you're stopping this whole process in your brain of talking yourself out of it. You have to put an action to thought. You have 5 seconds until this part of your brain starts actually trying to talk you out of it. And when I started learning about all this, which is why I'm so passionate about this in the personal development sector, but obviously it's our habits and our routines that keep us stuck a lot of the times. And this 5-4-3-2-1 method is just a very small piece of what I teach in my program to the girls. And that's why I invited all of them here. And we start in officially our one-on-ones next week, and our first group is in August. But I talk more in depth about this in, sorry, I'm seeing a chat come up, but in the group, but it's actually when you start putting this into process, it allows you to build confidence because you're honoring your instincts with that action. So it's very simple and it seems so silly, but it's actually, there's a whole reason behind why and how this works. So I'm going to just see the chat real quick. See you guys, what you're saying. So let's see. Amanda said, my goal in life is to get up early and work out before work. If only toddlers had a snooze button. I've tried this strategy before and it works, but I honestly forgot about it and need to use it more often. Yes. So when I discovered this method, what was crazy to me about this was it is so simple. And some of us have definitely probably used it before and not even realized like all this like science and technical terms behind it. But when I realized, because I don't know if anyone else felt this, but I would sometimes feel like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I just do this? It's so simple. And it's always the simplest things. I tell myself I'm going to read 30 pages of a book, and then I don't. I come up with some excuses, but I'm like, well, what is wrong with me? Why is it? It's all these chemical reactions are going in the brain. It's really not, there's nothing wrong with you, just like there's nothing wrong with me. But when I actually understood what was holding me back, it was kind of like a life changer, because I realized that I had more power over my brain and my decision-making skills to change my habits than I really ever realized. Also, another huge thing with this is my issues with change prior to this were that I would always go and try and change just one section of my life. So I would either say, okay, the physical section, I want to start going to the gym. Okay, that would be like my one change. Well, my mindset was not where it needed to be. So I was still not thinking, in the way of like that I've learned and that I teach in my program, the ways of perspective shifting and abundance, and not thinking in like a scarcity mentality, or the whole importance behind positive thinking, because it is so impactful. But I would always go and try and change one small thing, and I was wondering why it wasn't working for me. Oh, Irma. Hello, Irma. My friend from Singapore actually just joined us, everyone. So that is super exciting. Irma is, real quick, side note, I'm so happy I got into this whole coaching thing, because Irma's actually one of my friends. She's in Singapore now. I met her. She only lived in Singapore. But I met her through doing my market research calls, and she's become one of my really good friends. So I'm happy to have you here. But like I was saying, I would always try and go and change just one thing about what I was doing. So whether it be the physical part at the gym, or that I would try changing my eating habits for a day, but I would always quit. And I was wondering why things weren't working for me. And it's because you cannot go and change just one section of your life if you really want to make an actual change in your life in its entirety. I always think like, if I lose a certain amount of weight, I'm going to feel so much better, and I'll be ready to take on that goal, or I'll be ready to go show up here, or I'll feel more confident in front of my friends. But it really has nothing to do with that, because confidence isn't just about one thing. And that was hard for me to kind of grasp. And now I'm so happy that I've kind of learned everything that I have, because I realized I was focusing on all the wrong things. So the next slide here, I just have written at the top, how can you actually change your life in these 5 seconds? So it says here, the most obvious and important realities are often the ones that are the hardest to see and talk about. So this brings me to my pretty vulnerable point, but I shared a little bit of it in my video on Facebook, my first live. But I knew that one of my self-sabotaging habits that I had was being essentially, I would say, addicted to Adderall. I was taking Adderall all the time after college, especially. I was working in the restaurant industry, late nights, I double shifts, 12-hour shifts. So I was taking Adderall, and I knew what I had to do was to stop taking it, or to start weaning myself off of it and start the process of finding healthier, natural forms of energy, because I saw the cycle of what I was doing. I knew I was taking the Adderall, and then I was going to work, and I was high energy for a little, then I would crash. I was super nasty to everybody around me when that was happening. And then either if I had a longer shift, I would take more way too late. I would be up way too late. I would drink to take the edge off, and then I'd be too tired to start my next day. It was a cycle of self-sabotage that I recognized. I knew what I needed to do, but for years I didn't do it. And that is what why I'm so passionate about what I have learned and what I teach now. It's because we all know, but it's always the hardest things to talk about. For me, I knew it, but I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I felt like And it's just so weird because I feel like once you put something out there and you say it to somebody and you say, I'm having this issue with Adderall, it's almost like you have to take responsibility now because someone else heard you say it and they're going to check in and see how you're doing with that. Like, are you stopping? Are you handling it? You told me about this. So you say it now, it's like out in the open and it becomes reality. So a lot of us like don't talk about things like that because we don't want other people to know. So I kept it to myself for years. And I would say, oh, tomorrow I'll stop. Tomorrow I'll stop. You know, once I'm out of the restaurant industry, I'll stop. And I had no plans to get out of the restaurant industry. And I'm like, you know, so it's just really wild how they're usually so obvious to us, but they're the hardest for sometimes other people to see. A lot of my friends said, I didn't even know you were taking Adderall. And another thing, a reason that was hard for me to get off of it was I was afraid of weight gain. But guess what? That's just a part of the game. And, you know, I gotta just be mindful of what I'm eating and get to the gym, but I'd rather be healthier in my mind and my body, you know, when I'm where I want to be, but it wasn't doing me any favors. And that's what I talk about as the process of self-sabotage. But the more time that you spend thinking about something, the more paralyzing it's actually going to feel. So that's how we get into the overthinking, which overthinking about anything naturally leads to being stressed about it. And then that stress leads to procrastination and the cycle continues, kind of like that self-sabotage cycle that I just described to you guys about when I was taking Adderall. But with procrastination, and I said I was going to talk about this a little bit, procrastination, when you are procrastinating something, when you're putting it off, it's actually a form of stress relief. So we procrastinate because something is stressful to us. And in our minds, we're like, you know, it's stressful for me to go to the gym right now because I'm worried about what people, and this is just an example, like what people are going to think about me because I don't know how to use the machines or something. I talked about this in my live the other day. Or I don't want to go run down the street because what if someone sees me? What if I see someone I know and I look silly or something like that? So we create, our mind overthinks the scenario when who cares? You go out and you run, you're going to come back, you're going to feel better. And if you do it enough days in a row, you're certainly going to feel better and look better. But our minds talk us out of it. It creates this stress because we're thinking about it so much, and then we procrastinate it. Oh, it would be so much nicer if I just actually went and sat on the couch over there and, you know, watched a reality show or something. So we procrastinate because we're stressed. It's actually just a form of stress relief, and that is why bookending your days, and this is something that my coach Sophie has talked about a lot, but bookending your days are so important. Starting the day strong and ending the day strong, and having a solid routine in the middle. And routine building and habit cycling is another thing that I teach in my program, because a lot of us don't even sometimes know the habits that are not even serving us until we're talking it through with somebody else. And we're realizing patterns. Someone else can actually say back to you this pattern that they see you, you know, creating, and you don't even know it yourself. And then it's like, oh, wow. Like, you know, obviously that's something that's not serving me. But so that is kind of how this cycle continues to go on. And I mentioned this earlier, but 5 seconds is all that it takes to close the window in our minds. So when you put an action to a thought in 5 seconds, if you don't, you're going to talk yourself out of do it. And this is what I said about the most simple things, and the gym was huge for me. And so it's like when I found out that I really had like this 5-second barrier, and that was all, like it was just so eye-opening to me, because I was like, wow, I'm really not as strong as I think. I don't have as much power as I think over my mind then, if that's all it takes is 5 seconds. But when you realize it and you recognize it, you actually start using this method a lot more, because you're like kind of being like, nope, stop, I'm gonna go and take this action that I know my mind's trying to talk me out of. So there is a part in a book by Mel Robbins, which I love. She talks about why we count backwards and we're not counting forwards. And psychologists call this asserting control. So when you're counting backwards, you're actually mentally shifting the gears in your mind. You can always, when you count forwards, you can go 1 to all the way up to, 100 million. There's no stopping point. When you're counting down from 5, when you get to 1, there's nothing after 1. That's when you've got to move. You got to go. You got to like put that action in, to that thought. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, counting backwards interrupts your default thinking, and it distracts you from your excuses and focuses your mind on moving in a new direction. And when you physically move instead of stopping to think, your physiology changes and your mind falls in line. And this is another thing I really love talking about in my program. We talk about a lot of habit building and talking, as I said, about like habits that don't serve you, but there's a lot of research behind habits, which is so interesting. And the idea of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is actually known as a starting ritual. So the starting ritual is something that activates the prefrontal cortex, which is the part right here in the brain, which essentially helps you to change the behavior. So all of this, I don't know about you guys, this is so interesting to me because they don't teach this stuff in school. Like they do not teach us in school, like, I mean, unless I'm sure if you went to like a certain class, but I'm talking like high school, your standard classes, they don't teach you about, you know, decision-making skills, habit building, routine, because all of that, habits, routine, decision-making, that is like how we build change in our lives. That's how we are able to, you know, make progress and make things happen. Let me see what we got going over here. They should teach this in school. Yes. I tried the strategy before. Honestly forgot about it and beat myself up. Thank you for explaining how I do this. Yeah, Amanda, thank you for, I love when you guys type in the chat too. I love like connecting with you guys on every level, but there's a whole reasoning behind this. And it upsets me. It's one of those things, like they don't teach a lot of these important things in school, but what happens, we all end up beating ourselves up because we're like, why can't I get this? Or why can't I like commit to going to the gym every day? Or why can't I do this? Or why is it so much easier for me to, you know, reach for the Snickers bar than making a healthy smoothie? I mean, it all goes into habits and like all these routines. And I just wish that I knew this when I was younger, because I feel like for a lot of us, knowing these things can actually create real life changes, and it actually boosts confidence. And I've said this a lot before in some of my stories, but any small change that you make, and when you're honoring your own instincts and you're following through with something, you're actually keeping promises to yourself. And that's the fastest way to boost confidence, is when we keep promises to ourselves. And yourself is really the only person that you need to trust, and that is the only opinion that you really need to worry about, which I struggled a lot with outside criticism too. But once I, again, with this kind of research and stuff, learned why other people criticize us and why other people assert themselves into saying certain things or telling us what they think, like these unsolicited opinions, there's a whole science behind why they're doing that as well, which is pretty powerful when you know about that as well. So I just have a quick slide right here. It's like way more scientific than I really am or like to be, but this just shows you where the prefrontal cortex actually is in your brain. And it just says this is the part of the brain that you actually use when you focus, when you make changes, when you take deliberate actions. And that's why this simple yet very powerful tool pushes you to take simple actions and creates a chain reaction in your confidence and your productivity. So I felt pretty pushed to kind of do this first workshop on the 5-second method, because I feel like I'm always just like 5-second method, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And people are like, obviously, duh, like, oh, you know, that makes sense. But there's a whole reasoning behind why. And I feel like when people actually know why and they take it seriously, they use it and they're able to, like, you know, create impactful change. So my next part here is just, let's talk about it. So I'm just going to go back to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick and just go to the chat here. But if you guys have any questions or anything, I would love to have known this in high school, would have helped in college too when you're making decisions independently. Yep, they should teach this in school. If you guys have any questions right now, would be a perfect time to ask them. I only have, I think, like 2 more slides really left as far as the whole teaching aspect. But the whole thing is like, when we don't even realize when we're talking ourselves out of certain things and when we're doing this, the most frustrating thing for me was like, I didn't know anything about any of this like activation energy or, you know, anything that I've read about. And I talked about this in my live the other day, but for those of you who've never heard of activation energy, essentially in the term of like chemists, activation energy is the initial energy used to create the chemical reaction, to start the chemical reaction. And that's why like simple things like getting out of bed in the morning or getting out the door and going to the gym are so hard, because having that initial energy, that activation energy to do it, that's the hardest to come up with. And this 5-second method allows you to kickstart that and inputting that action into that thought. That is how we are able to activate that energy. Once you're actually involved in, you know, like once you get out of bed, or once you get to the gym and you're on the treadmill, the energy required to keep something going is far less than the initial energy needed to start. So I never heard of activation energy before in my life. And maybe if they talked about it in chemistry class, I'm sure it went in one ear and out the other. Chemistry was not for me. But when it comes to terms of personal development, I'm super interested because I want to know how I can best have control over my life. I want to know how I can make impactful decisions and changes to my routine. Like, I want to know why things aren't working. And another thing that goes right into this that I've discussed before as well is that whole self-parenting mentality of why tools like the 5-second method are so useful. It's because once you turn 18, no one's knocking on your door anymore saying like, hey, you have this you have this college assignment that you've got to get done, or hey, you haven't worked out in 3 weeks, and if you don't, what's going to happen? Like, no one's checking in with us like that. It's all on us to follow through with the daily tasks and to-dos that we tell ourselves we're going to do. And, the self-parenting thing is really difficult for a lot of us. And that's why a lot of us end up getting stuck. And when I say stuck, I kind of mean and if anyone's kind of like me, but that feeling of like, you're unfulfilled in a certain area of life. You really don't know what it is, but you're unfulfilled. You're just like, you kind of wish things were a little bit different, or I'm trying to think of like another example, or you just don't really have like that confidence to take on that task. Or for me, I was always people pleasing too. That was a huge problem for me. And self-parenting, it's like, that's up to you to like cut the people pleasing. That's up to you to say like, I'm going to do this for me today, instead of, I'd feel guilty if I didn't follow through on these plans with this friend that I made, but I don't want to do it. And then how many times do we find ourselves doing stuff and we're somewhere or with people that we really don't even want to be with or be there, and then we're even like more upset, and we end up spending so much more time doing that, and none of your own stuff gets done, and it's just an awful feeling. So that's why I am so passionate just about the whole coaching thing, although it's new, is that's for accountability. Because if we can't do it on our own, I couldn't do it on my own. I mean, we all get to a point where we just feel stuck. It just feels tough. It feels hard. It's like, how can I make this change? And it's always like, what am I doing wrong? Or what can I do differently? And it's tough. And that's why anything that forces you to show up with accountability is hugely impactful. And then let's see, we got a question. Any tips on creating the initial activation energy? So the main tip that I can give you on the initial activation energy is, now that you are aware of and who asked me that? Was it Marissa? Hi, Marissa. Thank you for being here, by the way. The tip I can give you is, now that you know about this 5-second method, as soon as you know, whatever it is, like if you want to go to the gym, I don't know if you told me exactly what it is, like something that you want to change, but if it's that you want to go to the gym or something, think about this conversation, think about this workshop, think about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like, and just say to yourself, all right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm putting my sneakers on and I'm out the door. Because that's what's going to create that activation energy. It's stopping your mind. It's stopping the overthinking cycle. It's not even giving your mind a chance to talk you out of what you really want to do. And that is why that is so important. So that's what I would say, is it's worked for me. I mean, knowing what I know, and then the alarm goes off, and I have to be a little bit more, with that all the time. It's definitely, I know this pandemic has hit all of us really hard, and a lot of us aren't working our traditional 9-to-5s, and our schedules are thrown off. And if there's anyone here, I know Mary has a kid, no one, like, kids aren't going to daycare, kids aren't going to schools, everyone's schedules are so crazy. And so it's definitely hard. It's harder now than ever to stick to a routine, but that is why things like this and the personal development thing, when you learn about it and how to make changes coming out of this pandemic, for me, is I want to come out better and, stronger than ever, like, in my mind, and know exactly what I need to do to make things happen for myself, because no one else is going to do it for you. And honestly, our feelings are what keep us from, a lot of times, from that activation energy. You're never going to feel like it. Your feelings are always, our emotions are always what we're actually making decisions with. It's not really actually our brains, our emotions, and it's whether or not you feel like going to the gym. It's not, you need to go, but do you feel like it? No, like, none of us feel like doing anything that we have to do to create change. And that's why it makes it so hard, because our feelings are what keep us in situations for far too long that, you know, we shouldn't be in any longer, or, you know, with in a friendship that is toxic, and which is I've had a personal experience with that. I'm not sure if anyone else has, but I see Marissa said she's a huge people pleaser, and that was something I struggled with for so long, and I recognized it in a friendship that I had, and I've been friends with her for over 10 years. And I don't know if anyone else is like me, but it's like, it's been so long. So is making new friends is hard and weird. So I'll just keep what I have because like they know so much about me, and forget that. Seriously, that friendship, I was people pleasing all the time. I mean, and it was the most toxic friendship. She was extremely controlling. She was extremely negative too, which I have a whole thing in my program where I teach about the power of positivity. When you're surrounding yourself with people who are negative, even their chatter about certain things in life, or when they put down other people. I don't know if any of you have a friend like the one I used to have, but we would be sitting out to lunch and she couldn't even like focus and be present on our conversation. She was looking around people in the room and being like, oh, look at that girl. Look what she's wearing. Oh, where do you think she got that? And I'm like, why are you that person? And she's doing exactly what she's afraid of other people doing to her, which is why now I understand her, you know, she had low self-esteem, her confidence was low. Like she wasn't following through with anything that she needed to actually do because her mind was talking her out of things. And it's just, I knew that surrounding myself with this friendship was toxic for me. I didn't really realize it then, but I was people pleasing every time that I showed up to an event that, you know, she would invite me to, because to me, it felt so much harder to break off this friendship with her, because I was nervous. What's going to happen, you know, the next time we have a, you know, a birthday gathering and she's there and I'm uncomfortable, and that confrontation. But I realized that like, we don't have to explain ourselves to anybody. And that's huge when the people pleasing section, like we don't have to explain ourselves to anybody. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you feel or what you choose to do, because if your cup is not full, you will not be able to pour into others. And it is so much truth behind that. The more time you spend pouring into other people, the less your cup is going to be full, the less energy you're going to have. That activation energy certainly isn't happening. And you feel like crap about yourself because you feel guilty and you're worn down, and it's exhausting when you're pouring more into other people, especially, you know, when they're surrounded by negativity, and it's just awful energy to be around. Let me see here. I see this makes so much sense. Marissa said, my action I want to work on is if my initial thought in 5 seconds is, no, I don't want to hang with this person. Don't do it just to please them. Yes. So next time that someone asks you to hang out, and also you have the freedom to change your mind. I just want to let you know, like, I know a lot of us will make plans with somebody, or we commit to doing something that we don't want to do, and the time comes and then we follow through because we're people pleasers. That's what I'm saying to you. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, if they ask you to hang out and you really don't want to do it, guess what? You don't, as we get older, we don't owe anyone explanation for, hey, no, I'd rather use that time to spend some me time or do this instead. Or, you know, because what happens is you go through and you do those plans and you're not getting your own stuff done, and you're stressing yourself out even more. Let's see what she wrote. Irma. Would it be so bad to tell someone that the reason why we don't want to hang out with them anymore is because they're giving out a negative vibe? Maybe they're just not aware of it. So that's a great question. And that's a double-edged sword. So that depends on, because I didn't really give an explanation to this friendship that I cut off after 10 years. She was wearing me thin. We had multiple conversations and conflict over me. I started slowly voicing more of my distaste with certain things that she would say and do. And she was always justifying why she was saying and doing what she was doing. She was never wrong. She had a very hard time with apologizing. And so I had made it aware of things that I did not care for. But when I cut her off, I kind of just slowly just let it disappear. I stopped really responding to the text messages like I did. You know, I stopped kind of answering the phone calls. I was busy. But that's because I knew, and for a lot of these people who are high negative vibes, when you go into having that conversation with them, Irma, it really depends on what kind of role they play in your life, because sometimes it's just not, that conversation isn't worth it if they're the type of person who's really never gonna want to hear it. And that's really hard for a lot of people in personal development, is like they don't really actually want to hear what their issue is. And for my friend in my situation, I would try and tell her something like, I think that you're kind of putting other people down because you don't feel too great about yourself. Like, what's going on there? You don't know what you're talking about. Like, you have no idea what you're saying. I feel great about myself. And I'm like, well, clearly, if you felt so great about yourself, you wouldn't be tearing other people down. So I don't know, Irma, because I'm the type of person, like I used to have a really big issue with conflict because I always felt like I had to explain myself. But I would say to you, like, if they're giving out a negative vibe, I don't know. My prediction would be if you were to tell them about it, it's going to cause more negativity. It's going to bring you more negativity. You're going to have a whole conversation with this person. They have to want to change. The energy that they're putting out is going to change energy that they get in. Negative people are always the type of people who are like, woe is me, life is so hard, why aren't things working out for me? And it's because they bring that in. And that's another thing that, like, I talk about a lot in my program, is that power of like energy out equals energy. And a lot of people think it's like kind of like woo woo and stuff, but it's really not. Like, the way that your perspective is and the way that you shift the way you think about things is actually going to change the way that you receive things into you. And once that is really like your mindset's really where it needs to be, you lose that desire to even want to have those conversations of having to explain to somebody like, you give off this really negative vibe. It's not enjoyable for me to be around you. You kind of get to the point where you're like, I don't need to explain myself. And you pulling away should be enough for them to kind of get it. Like, maybe it's me, kind of thing. But yeah, some people just are never really going to want to make those changes. I see Brittany said question ... Feel free to ask. This is a good time for questions too. I think I have like 2 more slides and then this will be over at 7. Which I feel like for doing this my very first time, it's going fairly well. I haven't like broken the computer or dropped anything off the desk yet. So while Brittany is typing her question, let's give her another minute. But I have to say, and I think like my next slide says like, thank you for being here, which I'll show you guys. Oh, here it is. This is Irma. I hate confrontations too. I have cut off some people in my life too, and most times I don't give them any explanations now. I just try to be a little more vocal on things that I don't like early in the relationship so that it wouldn't drag on for so long. Yes. And I actually just had a similar situation occur with me with a friend's wedding who chose to get married in the middle of this pandemic across the country in California. And I was supposed to be a bridesmaid. And I obviously haven't been working in so long. And it was going to cost a lot of money to fly. And she was the only person that I really had heard of in so long that was still kind of going through with a wedding in the middle of this, let alone be it like cross country. So I actually had like actual anxiety and stress over telling her, someone who's supposed to be a good friend to me, telling her that like, hey, I don't feel comfortable attending your wedding, not only because of the pandemic and flying. That really wasn't too much of it for me because there's of course always way to disinfect and a plane or a seat or whatever. But for me, it was kind of like, I haven't been working. That's a lot of money you're asking from me. And that's kind of a position to put me in when we were in the heat of the pandemic when this happened. Like, I hadn't actually launched my coaching business. Like, I was like in the midst of like getting things started and it was like scary for me. So I had expressed this, to her and she said she understood. But I was already pulling away from her prior to that because of the way that she was treating the people around her. And I did let that friendship kind of drag on way too long too, because she's involved in a lot of my college friends. I know I'm going to see her. So although I would have really have loved to kind of tell her like, hey, I think it's like super inconsiderate that you're kind of still going through with this when all of your bridesmaids have children and are planning their own weddings or just bought a house and you want like everyone to spend all this money still. And one girl's like mom has cancer treatment, she won't be able to see her. I would have loved to have told this girl about herself, but to me, the weighing out like the positive and negatives of like going the back and forth of how much stress that confrontation was going to like cause me, knowing her as a person, she's, of any relationship or friendship is a two-way street, right? So you have to just trust your own intuition. Like, you have to just know that like the way you feel is valid no matter what somebody else is going to say back to you, and you just have to like kind of let go. And this was hard for me for a long time, and like sometimes when we all like feel that like surge of a certain emotion, whether it be anger or frustration, we want to like kind of like let it out on this other person. I just started to realize it wasn't worth it. So like I just told her I wasn't going to her wedding. She sent me she said she understood, and then she just recently sent me this pretty like nasty message, seeing that I came down to my dad's condo in Florida, but like it doesn't cost me money to be here, and there's a beach and there's a pool, and no one ever is at this pool. There's like no one ever here because it's the middle of the summer. And it was it was cost effective, and I did the right things coming down, and she just wasn't rational about it. And she sent me like a really nasty message. And I was like, I could explain to her how me being at my dad's place, that I can control my environment, not be in a wedding party around a bunch of people, or also how it doesn't cost me any money to be here. I could live here for 3 months, and her wedding for one weekend was going to cost me that amount of money. Like it was so insane to go to this wedding. I was like, but it's not worth it. If she doesn't want to rationalize or see or know that what kind of person that I am, it's not worth it for me to like get into it. So let's see. Okay, so I got 2 things here. I hate conversations because I'm realizing that there's no need to justify our actions to others. If a friendship isn't serving you, we need to be okay with taking a step back for yourself and sanity. It's a hard task I'm working on. Yes, Marissa, I'm right there with you. All of these things when it comes to personal development and really owning who we are in our own decision making and confidence and all of this, to have a voice or to know when we just kind of need to let negative situations go. It comes with growth, and it comes with putting like all of these kind of methods and things in action in a place and just being aware of it. And then let's see. A high school friend of mine has recently decided to move on and put her past behind her. Staying a friend, it's kind of positive, supportive. I know her grandma just passed this. When I had asked her, "Hey, what's going on?" She told me she had a problem with me but didn't know how to communicate with me. And I do this initially ever done. Instead of everything, hey, it's very easy to speak to. Yeah, and honestly, and Brittany wrote that, I kind of think that a lot of times when like the negative person in any situation is the one who moves on, it's just kind of like a blessing in disguise. You just kind of like have to let that go and just kind of let that be. Don't expect any explanation from them. Don't expect to, really fight to get some sort of understanding, because it's not worth your energy. But I am like so appreciative of these questions and your guys' comments. It really means a lot to me. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen real quickly again, which how do I do this again? All right, share screen. And okay. Sharing is paused because you share. I see, guys, I don't know what I'm doing here. Hold on. I don't know why this is fun. Let's see. Well, all I can tell you is that, let's see if I can. Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys, I told you, you got to bear with me. This is like my first time doing this. It's very fun. Okay, perfect. So there's only a few last slides here. And essentially we went through the questions and stuff, and then I said thank you guys obviously for being here. And the last part that I'm just going to take a few minutes if anyone has any questions about this, but obviously I've been showing up a lot on Instagram, Facebook. I want to keep doing more lives. I love doing things like this, so keep an eye out for more free workshops and stuff on different topics to come. I go way more in depth on all this stuff in my coaching program. So if anyone's interested in knowing more about that, there's different ways to work with me if you're interested. So I'm super passionate about this topic. I love like connecting with people and talking about this stuff. But if you are interested in learning more, connecting with me more, getting involved in one of my programs, I do a free one-on-one discovery call, and we'll just hop on a call and we'll talk for about 30 minutes to an hour about, what goals you're looking to achieve, what things you're kind of struggling with, and to see if it's a good fit for us to work together. I am not the type of person who is going to assert and say like, I can definitely help you fix that if I don't think that I can. But if you're interested in the things that I've kind of talked about today, I would love to, get on a call, talk about it, see if, it would be a good fit for us. The program I have right now, Rewire Your Fire, it's a group program, which studies have actually shown that group accountability is huge in the personal development sector for actually like making change happen. So Rewire Your Fire, our one-on-ones are starting next week, actually. Doing them throughout the week for the girls, where we're going to do a 60-minute call before the groups start. So the groups officially launch the first week in August. So there is still time to join. I've got 2 spots left. There's 2 spots. If anyone is concerned, obviously, about like payment plans and stuff, I know it's a pandemic. There's a deposit to get started, but then I have worked out personal payment plans for each of the girls who are involved that works for them, because honestly, it's more important to me that people come out of this pandemic, you know, mentally healthier, physically healthier, whatever their goals are, they want to crush. Because I've talked about this in my live the other day, like social anxiety is real. It's a time where we need to be working on ourselves and connecting with others. So Rewire Your Fire, that launches beginning of August. If any of you are interested, I would love to have you as a part of it. It's a great group of girls that are involved in it so far. They are amazing. It's not a one-size-fits-all program. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because we kind of go through different, you know, everyone has a different goal they're going after, but in a way of accountability and our private Facebook community. And there's an app that we use, Voxer, so you have 24/7 support with me and the other girls. It's awesome. You know, it's a little sisterhood kind of, and it's just proven, like in research, that groups help you achieve more, especially like-minded individuals. And then I also have a 6-week one-on-one coaching option, which is less of an investment as the group program. But again, like, I really want you guys to know that I've worked out payment options for all of the girls who are enrolled, because making a difference in people's lives and having them come out of this whole thing is a lot more important to me right now. And I think this is like stuff that we could all benefit from learning and, you know, knowing about. So I'm going to stop my share on my screen, come back here real quick, see if there's any quick questions. Agreed, your energy is contagious. Keep it up. Yes, coaching groups equal new best friends. Oh, thank you. Stacy said you're amazing, such a positive influence. Thank you. And on this workshop right now, I'll just tell you guys real quick. Mary commented, yes, coaching groups equal new best friends. She's not lying. She is actually in my my coaching program with my coach, because I always believe that you really shouldn't invest in something if the person isn't doing it themselves, because that would be false advertisement. But I actually have invested a lot of money into myself and personal development during the pandemic, which is how I've been able to change so much in the last couple of months. Back in March, I sent my coach a message that I actually said, I am at the bottom of my barrel. I don't know what to do. I feel so entirely lost. And I've made leaps and bounds of changes, and Mary is actually in that group coaching program with me, and she has become one of my best friends. She's from Georgia, and now that I'm down in Florida right now, we were actually able to meet, which was amazing. So if you are hesitant on any scale at all about coaching or have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm around. You can DM me, Facebook message me, whatever. I'm here to answer any of your questions. And even if you're not sure if it's a good fit for you, free discovery call. I'd love to connect with people, and I just love to learn and know more about you. But it's true, when you have a group behind you, there's a different sense and level of accountability, and there's just this group camaraderie. And especially like when you go through something tough, because I just had to call Mary, like, all of us are going through things constantly. Things are constantly happening to us. Like, it's, you know, nothing is just an immediate fix. So I had to call, I called Mary the other day, so I'm really struggling with this. Like, and now we've gotten to really know each other. And she was like, look, think about, what we've talked about. Think about, what you've learned. Like, think about this, think about this. And I was like, you're right. She kind of brought me back down to earth. It's hard to go and have that conversation with a friend who has no idea. Our friends, so often, friends and family, they brush us off. Like, they're like, oh, yeah, you'll be fine. Like, life's tough, get a helmet kind of thing. And honestly, any opinion that you get is like from the outside, no matter if people are like trying to do it intentionally, their opinion that they're giving you, they have some sort of like intention coming from behind it. They might not mean it, but there's something underlying there. It's like when you ask your friend, like in college, like, oh, do you like this outfit? Should I wear this outfit? Your friend might be like, no, I think you should change. But she might be saying that because she thinks you look better than her, and she's not going to tell you that. Like, and it's all that kind of thing that people like aren't really telling you their full intentions. When you meet somebody new who has no reason to like put you down or build you up for anything other than creating an actual bond and friendship, it is life-changing. Let's see here. Irma said, you mentioned that when you crash from Adderall, you get really nasty with people around you. Ever since I met you, your energy has always been so good and positive. I cannot imagine you being nasty. LOL, thank you so much for doing this. I love what you're doing. Thank you, Irma. Yes, I have not been on Adderall now for, I think it's going on like a month and a half, 2 months. And it was definitely a tough thing for me to, kind of quit. And I honestly did it like pretty cold turkey with honest to God, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. I was like, I'm stopping like tomorrow. I don't like the way I feel anymore. And that's it. Like, I'm done. And it's worked for me. And that's why I'm telling you, like, I wouldn't teach or tell people things that like didn't actually work for me. All of this stuff in the program has helped me change my life, has helped me end toxic friendships, has helped me, create a routine, create habits around something that worked for me. Like I started cooking, I started taking vitamins, like all of these things. I started standing up for myself and having a voice. All of these things I never had before. And I want to just give all of this to other people who could benefit from it, who are interested in it. And coaching is like just taking the online world by storm right now. And even if you're interested in becoming a coach yourself down the line, I've done it now. So I could also assist with any goals like that. But it's not any specific goal either. It's whatever that you're looking to achieve, which I would never say I could help with something that I didn't think that I could. But thank you guys so much for being here. I'm going to wrap it up. It's coming up on an hour, and I cannot thank you all so much for coming to my first live workshop. Seriously, it's been so fun. Thanks for bearing with me when I'm like trying to share my screen and stuff. Oh, the last thing, I guess I'll share this last thing real quick. We got 4 minutes. This is my, I got to share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Da-na-na. Desktop. Okay, you are screen sharing. Okay, so this right here, some of you may have seen it, some of you may have not. But this is my signature process for the group coaching program, Rewire Your Fire. So just real quick, I'll just go through it. The course objective. The goal is to identify and ditch limiting beliefs, rewire your mindset, routine, and habits in order to get on a productive and positive path to tackle your goals with confidence. Then we would work together for you to achieve clarity on exactly what has not been serving you and your current routine. And my mission is to give you the knowledge and techniques to break down self-sabotage and the tools to build a foundation that actually creates lasting changes, not just like for the month, for the next 2 months, like things that you'll actually use. And then there is actually 4 phases. So this has really been thought out by me. This is not something that's been thrown together. There is a clear pathway on how it works, the different weeks and what we'll discuss. And there's like different little assignments that would go along with it. But first phase is getting clear on your clutter, which there's an awareness audit, routine breakdown, identifying self-sabotage. Clear space equals clear mind, a sliding stressor scale, blah, blah, blah. 2 is the power of positivity, which I talked about this a little bit. Energy out is energy in, how important it is to shift your perspective, analyzing your habits of self-sabotage, habit cycling. Number 3 is small steps, big action. That's where we go really in depth in the 5-second method, supporting yourself with self-care, which is so incredibly important. Routine building, consistent action focus, comfort zone crushing, implementing boundaries. And phase 4, which each of these last a few weeks as we work through them, because obviously like you're not going to like roll through some, it's a 12-week program, so you're not just going to like roll through it immediately. And that's another thing, if you're hesitant on like the investment thing, because like I've been there, it's 12 weeks. And like I said, I've implemented things that have worked for girls that have payment plans going as far as like 2 months from now, after the initial deposit. But anyway, phase 4 is maintaining momentum, where we work on action, accountability, long-term tools, checking your consistency, stress and anxiety management, and taking your feelings to being totally free. And program promises, the one-on-one deep dive session I talked about, coaching calls with coach check-ins, and then the group calls. There's a private Facebook group. I give you accountability tools. Quick client agreement is just being open and coachable, showing up to each call ready to give 100% and being willing to challenge your comfort zone. And then there's just a quick about me, which I already told you guys all about that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I am so happy to have had you guys here with me. If anyone has any questions or anything at all after this, feel free to reach out to me. I have loved every second of this. I love each one of you that are in here. Thank you. And I hope that I will hear from and talk to some of you guys soon. And if you're catching this on the replay, because I'm going to be ending this recording and sending it out, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have questions. I'll be around for any follow-ups. And I can't thank you guys enough, sincerely. All right, have a great rest of your evening. It is Thursday now, 7 o'clock here in Florida. Love you guys. See you later. Actually, yeah, and if anyone has any questions, I'll wait a minute, but I don't think anyone does. And while I figure out how to end this recording. Just see. Good. All right, we're good.